What's going on, everyone? This past weekend, we had the Oscars, otherwise known as the annual Sex Offender Awards. Too soon? Whatever. And what really captivated me about the Oscars, I don't really care about them, or I don't really care about Hollywood to begin with, but Common was up there and he performed, and in his performance, he brought political activists with him on stage, and I actually enjoyed that. I truly enjoyed that because to me, it took hip hop back to its essence. It took it back and reintroduced political stands to the mainstream via hip hop, which is to me refreshing to see and something that I really enjoyed and really inspired me to make this video. I'm gonna be real with you. I've tried to make this video 3 times now, and it messed up every single time. So I think I know why. Hopefully, I get it smooth this time, and let's get the show on the road. So if you remember my last video, I talked about mental health, and I did talk about how hip hop is a way for people, marginalized people, people of color in the United States to express themselves, because we all know mental health is a taboo, and obviously being black in America, where as hip hop originated with blacks in America, it's not very easy. So hip hop was a way to go ahead and express themselves and hopefully alleviate some of the mental traumas or emotional traumas that they were to face. So there is a culture behind this music, and it needs to be respected. So to me, personally speaking, hip hop was always a political thing. Obviously, you can evolve and not be political, but it has to stay true to certain parameters of its essence. And when Common did what he did, he was staying true to the culture of hip hop, and I really appreciated that. And he was also very outspoken. He said certain things toward the administration, to the NRA. It's not the first time Common has done this. It's actually very common for Common, ironically, to do these type of things. He was always been outspoken. He's one of those MCs that stay true to himself and true to the culture, which is something that I respect. So I really enjoyed that. So, as I said, I liked the fact that Common took it back to its roots, because I feel as if over time, or particularly recently, hip hop is losing a lot of its, I guess, grassroots culture, a lot of its social issues, and how it was spoken about like a few decades ago is no longer being done the same way now. And obviously now that's because hip hop is a lot more mainstream. It's a lot more popular than it ever was, you can say, but it's been co-opted. It's been co-opted by white America to continue their stranglehold over people of color in the United States. You can make that case, and that's something that I want to discuss in this video. So you can start seeing when hip hop truly gained notoriety, and by notoriety I mean really caught the eyes and ears of white America, was in the 80s, let's say mid to late 80s, early 90s, with NWA. And obviously NWA came out, and they came out slinging. Like, they came out heavy. They did not come out to play. They had songs like Fuck the Police, and Straight Outta Compton was a huge album for them that discussed the issues that blacks would face on a daily basis in South Central LA and Compton, or throughout the United States. It wasn't just centralized in that area. So the reason why I'm using NWA, of course, there was I guess, was it a biopic or whatever it's called, a movie about them a couple years ago. So even the people who weren't around to listen to that music, they can still have an idea of what I'm talking about. So that's why we're using NWA as an example. But there's various examples out there. It's not just them. But for the sake of reference, we'll use them for now. So when NWA was coming out and when their music was really being pushed, a lot of white America's commentary, and I say white America because it mainly was white people, a lot of their commentary against, or criticisms against NWA, was that they're very violent, they're very anti-police, they're very backwards, they're very unpredictable, they're very scary. And these type of criticisms are very common whenever somebody is in the upper tier, is at the upper echelon of a class of society, and someone of the lower class is trying to explain how they're feeling, and this is why they feel this way. The people that are usually of higher class, like, oh my God, they feel threatened, because NWA was very against the status quo lyrically, and that made a lot of people uncomfortable, particularly white America. So I've never seen a genre, not just the group, a genre being dragged through the mud as much as hip hop has, particularly at that time. And even now it's being dragged through the mud, but it's being dragged through the mud in a more like covert way. It's not as blatant. There's not as much public uproar as to what's going on. But there is ways that hip hop is being pillaged and drugged through the mud and being basically shit on that isn't as easily to be seen by you and me, given all the talk shows, etc., that's been going on, or that was going on in the 80s and 90s. So when I heard the criticisms against NWA, just as an example, the violent, the uncivilized, I guess you would say, the threat to society that they posed, it took me, like, you just think about it a little bit. It's those type of criticisms and those type of descriptions of people are very common, even in colonial time, when the time of colonial expansion, when the Europeans were out to colonize, let's just use Africa, African Americans, so we'll use Africa. When they went into Africa, they had to sell this mission, this voyage to the Europeans, right? They had to sell it to the people who lived in their homelands. And what they were doing often was saying, we have to go to Africa and bring these people civilization. We have to bring them to modernity. We have to bring them to see what we see and be like us, because they are backwards. They're violent. They don't know what structure is. This is what we're here for. So they brought Christianity. They brought certain ways of life to Africa, and they even stuff like soap. They used soap as a way to say, look, we're going to civilize these Africans because they're dirty and they need soap. Shit like that, right? To me, there's a common thread here. The colonial legacy manifests itself. It's very similar. Ice Cube, MC Ren, Dr. Dre, etc., Eazy-E, DJ Ella, these guys are backwards. Look at the stuff that they're saying. Unbelievable. We have to really criticize them for this, because they are not saying what is right. They are saying such violent things. They're threatening me. I haven't seen such uproar. I haven't seen any type of music go through the public uproar that hip-hop created, all because people were speaking their minds in a free country, right? Personally speaking, I can never be upset at somebody who is merely explaining how they see the world. Because if that's how they see the world, and there's evidence to suggest, that's definitely how they see the world. Imagine being a young black male walking through the streets of the United States, even today, let alone 30 years ago. Even today, given all the police shootings we have, how scary and how vulnerable can you get? There's nothing as vulnerable as trying to go to a store to pick up something from the store only to be harassed and potentially killed, right? I think that's all that NWA was trying to show. But obviously through multiple years of being hounded, being picked on because of your color, you're going to eventually snap and become violent. Anybody who is unfamiliar, go read Frantz Fanon on violence about it. It has nothing to do with hip-hop, but it's that type of mentality manifests within a lot of hip-hop artists who are there to express themselves and the shortcomings of society, particularly living in the ghetto. So it at its essence has always been political. And to use another example, a personal example, in university, I did political science as my major, and I did a international relations master's degree, so my MA in IR. And ironically, going into university, I've never taken a political science course in my life, throughout high school, anywhere. My first political science, I never heard of political science until I went to university and decided to major in it. But when I sat down in the first week and started reading the material, I was familiar with a lot of this material, not because I know this shit, but because of the music I was listening to was very intertwined with this. The first political activist I ever heard of, I didn't even know they were political activists at the time. They just were advocating for political reform without me knowing. Tupac, Scarface, KRS-One, Public Enemy, all these artists, various artists, just some off the top of my head, were advocating about politics. made me appreciate not only my degree, 'cause it was kind of cool, but it made me appreciate hip hop on another level that I've never appreciated before. So that's just an example, right? These guys are discussing real life politics in their music, but now it's not the case. It's different now. It's a lot more different now, in the mainstream at least, because at that time it broke through and it just plummeted its way through the mainstream. Now, after certain years, it's been co-opted. Now the mainstream hip hop or music that's claimed to be hip hop in the mainstream level is not the same, right? And that makes sense. It makes sense because you gotta understand these people like Ice Cube, Tupac, Big, whoever it may be, people rapping in the 90s grew up right on the back and during the civil rights era movement era in the United States. So that's their upbringing. People who are rapping now are probably born in the mid 90s, like the mainstream rappers. Maybe some of them are even late 90s. Some of them are barely 20, 22. They're growing up in a place or in a time where hip hop and the voice of people of color has been nullified given the neoliberal society that we've come to live in during that time, right? So it's just a manifestation of their context. So I'm not overly mad at them, but if you're choosing to hip hop, you have to understand where it comes from, and it's your responsibility to study its roots and replicate and push the culture even more, right? An example of, before I give you an example, I just want to say I'm not shitting on any other type of music. I know any music can be political. It's not necessarily hip hop, but I don't know enough about other music to talk about it. Just like people who don't know enough about hip hop to criticize hip hop, don't do that. Don't do what white America did in the 90s to NWA and Ice Cube, etc. Don't do that shit. If you want to understand, if you want to sit and discuss music with me and teach me, I'm more than willing to sit and partake. But instead of criticizing that music, I'm not even going to talk about it because I don't know. And I'm telling you, I don't know about other music. I'm only talking about what I know, and that's hip hop. So let's make that clear. And hip hop also doesn't necessarily have to be overtly political and you don't got to come out sounding like Immortal Technique every time. He's amazing, don't get me wrong, but you don't got to sound like him every single time and claim to be hip hop. You can say meaningful stuff without being overtly political. Gangster rap was amazing at that. Gangster rap was a type of music that had a political backdrop, but their true creativity showed in the way they would paint pictures and use violence to paint pictures. But they would always acknowledge that this is why I'm doing this, because life is not set up for me to win. That's the underlying political aspect of it. It is, but it's not the main driving force behind it. They were more in love with making violence and the gangster lifestyle sound appealing. And hey, if you could put rhyme schemes together and bars together to make it sound so, all the power to you. That's amazing. Do it, right? And that's part of the evolution of the culture. So just to give you an example of what I mean by, it's being co-opted, it's like if you look at people who are hip-hop artists now, they all seem to fit a collective identity that is inconsistent with the beginnings of hip-hop. And to me, that is not growth and it's not evolution. It's being stretched and pulled away from what it's supposed to be. A few months back, just as example, I read a quote from Post Malone. I don't really listen to Post Malone. I just know he's very popular. And I know his music touches the clubs and people drive by and I'd hear him and okay, this guy listens to Post Malone. He is in the part of the driving force of where hip-hop is going. So I found a quote from him that was said back in November and I've always stuck on my mind ever since. And I interrogate it almost like every day. I have the quote here. I'm going to read it. And I don't necessarily agree with it. It gets me angry. So if I get heated, I'm sorry, but it is what it is. If you don't like what I'm saying, you can always just press X and go watch some Post Malone videos or whatever you want to listen to. So this is what he says. And this is a perfect example of how hip-hop is changing and how hip-hop is being seen as different than what it initially is. He says, and mind you, this is back in November. I'm just late. It's not recent. If you're looking for lyrics, if you're looking to cry, if you're looking to think about life, don't listen to hip-hop. There's great hip-hop songs where they talk about life and they spit that real shit. But right now, there's not a lot of people talking about that shit. Ironically, he's right. There isn't a lot of people talking about that, but that's secluded in the mainstream. There are a lot of people talking about it outside of the mainstream, where hip-hop is now trying to flourish and try to push back against the mainstream. Every day I listen to new music like that. Every week I know artists that do that type of stuff, right? So for him to say that is very unfair and is very ignorant on his end. But there's more, like, before I snap. He goes, whenever I want to cry, whenever I want to sit down and have a nice cry, I'll listen to some Bob Dylan. But whenever I'm trying to have a good time and stay in a positive mood, I listen to hip-hop because it's fun. I think hip-hop is important because it brings people together in a beautiful, happy way. Everybody's happy. Question. How the fuck is the song Brenda's Got a Baby a happy song? That song deals with many realities of life in the ghetto. It deals with sexual assault, rape, and sometimes even incest. It deals with teen pregnancy. It deals with teen panic about having a pregnancy, not telling anybody. She throws the child in the dumpster and then she passes away. I don't know about you, but I struggle to see where the fun is in that. It doesn't make any sense to me. It truly doesn't. So I don't know what he's talking about. The only thing I could say is I understand where he's coming from because he doesn't understand the roots of hip-hop, and that's the problem. The people who are creating hip-hop music now don't understand the roots of hip-hop and where it comes from. Racism is not fun. Living in the ghetto is not fun. Getting targeted by police because of your color is not fun. So I don't know how you're going to sit here and tell me, oh, everybody's happy. So a lot of people got at posts for this and said, you're being a culture appropriator. If this is what you think hip hop is, and it's not for you, which is great. That's what I would have said too if he ever was in front of me. So he rebuttals and he goes, a lot of people are saying I don't appreciate hip hop or I'm taking advantage of hip hop. My last album was fucking hip hop. I don't think so. My next album is fucking hip hop. We'll see. I love hip hop. I make hip hop. I want to take this genre and stretch it so far that people who may not listen to it, listen to it. There's not a lot of people talking about real shit. What I was trying to say is that a lot of people, except for a handful of artists, are saying the same shit. They're not saying anything super meaningful. I am 22 years old. I have not had all the life experience in the world to talk about the most meaningful shit. I think about what I have gone through, what's going on in my life, and what I want to sing about. Notice he says sing. Never once did I say I don't appreciate hip hop. I'm just trying to keep it living. I'm just trying to keep living and make the music that I love. Okay. You could stretch the culture. You could stretch the music without neglecting the culture. I gave the example of gangster rap. It evolved hip hop. It went at a different way, but it still stayed true to hip hop. You can do that. But what you're doing, and when you say this type of stuff, you're not staying true to hip hop. And that's a huge mistake. Somebody like you, who's in an envious position for many true hip hop heads that want to be at, like people who are aspiring to be where you're at, to say this type of stuff is not a good look. It's really not a good look. And I don't want to make this about you. I really don't care. But when you go and tell me I'm 22 years old, I have not had all the life experience in the world to talk about the most meaningful shit, well, Mr. Malone, your true color is showing. Okay? Because if you look at the artists that I grew up listening to, and I don't want to sound like one of those old souls, back in my day. No. I genuinely feel like creativity doesn't have an age. Humans are creative beings, and we express our creativity in different ways, and different talents, right? So if you're a hip-hop artist, one of your main talents should be lyrics, right? Pac was 20 when Tupacalypse came out. That's when Brenda's Got a Baby was on. It was on Tupacalypse. He was 20 when he wrote that. He was 2 years younger than you were. So don't give me that, oh, I'm 22, I haven't been through a lot of shit. That just makes you sound like you're not about it. You're not, maybe this isn't for you. That's what it sounds like to me. Dear Mama came out when Pac was 23. When NWA made their first album with Ice Cube, Cube was 19. And then when he went solo, he was 21 with America's Most Wanted. America's Most Wanted was written in 1990 or 1990. I think it was 91. I can't remember. But it came out 90 or 91. And if you listen to that album, I kid you not, if you listen to it today, you would be excused for thinking he wrote that last week. That's how timeless it is. And all the issues he's talking about in that album still manifest today. That's what hip-hop is. It's talking about issues that people face on a regular basis, right? So don't give me that everybody's positive and everybody's happy. Yes, a lot of people are saying the same shit. These mumble rappers are saying the same shit. I understand that. But is it truly happy? Like, the question I have to you and to anybody out there, this is something to think about. People who are talking about illicit like substance abuse, are they truly happy, or are they using these drugs or a means of escape from the life that they live? Maybe the mental issues that they're going through. Think about it that way. Maybe that's why they use all of these illicit substances. Maybe that's why they're so into alcoholism or drug abuse, because what they witness on a day-to-day basis is not something that does anything for them in a positive way, so they use it as an escape. And hip-hop taught me that. Hip-hop taught me that drug use and alcoholism and even sex was used as an escape for many people to get out of the shit lifestyle in front of them. So are they truly happy? Just a question. Think about it. I don't think so, but think about it. I'll leave that one with you guys. So that was just a little example of how, it's being changed. And this artist who's making music now, it's very relevant now. Even he's basically his thoughts are very consistent with what I'm saying. Like, even him saying, "Oh, not a lot of people say this shit." He's painting a picture to the overall co-opting of hip hop, right? That's what he's speaking to here. And I don't want people just to listen to this quote and be like, "Oh yeah, he's saying the right thing." Really investigate. When people that are popular, when they say some shit, you really got to understand and analyze what they're saying, because you can tell where things are going with what people say. Just got to open your mind and think about it. Just investigate. That's just my tidbit of advice. But yeah, I'm just here to, stay true to the culture. I don't really care about Post Malone or his music. It was just something that I thought would be relevant to this video. But yeah, that's basically it. I want, again, shout out to Common for doing what he did. It really inspired me to make this video. It was long overdue anyways. Hopefully I can make more of this type of video, maybe even break down some songs back then from the 90s, late 80s, mid to late 90s as well, and discuss and break them down and see what people were going through and how they're still very much were in the same situation in the next video and videos beyond. Just want to shout out before I go, everyone, all the rappers, personalities, doing it for the culture. Keep doing it. We need this. This is what we do. And again, this is hip-hop evolves, so it's not just about race. So anyone can be a great hip-hop artist. There's various artists out there who are Latino, Chino XL, Immortal Technique, Joel Ortiz, Big Pun, Fat Joe. All these guys have done it who are Latino, and they've embraced it. Eminem, same thing. Ari the Rugged Man, Vinny Paz, white artists who have all stayed true to the culture. So again, that's it for me. Everyone who's about hip-hop, stay true to the culture. All you rappers, personalities, bloggers, whatever you do, stay true to the culture. Keep it real. As always, as the hoodie says, dope lyrics matter. Shout out to Crooked Eye. Shout out to COB, Horseshoe Gang, for this merchandise. Shout out to Crook's Corner. Very huge fan of the podcast. Love it. Keep it going. Shout out to Royce and Black Dot. These guys just dropped some fire freestyles on Flex just recently. Royce I think it was this week, a couple days ago. I've listened to it 100 times already. I'm probably going to listen to it 100 times again. Keep doing it for the culture. I'll be back soon. I promise I'm not going to have such a long hiatus. Look forward to the next video. Stay tuned. You could like, comment, subscribe to my channel if you want to. I promise I'm going to keep coming a lot harder now. I'm going to be more consistent with it. But that's it for me. It's all love as always. One. And one more thing before I go. Today is March 9th, 21 years ago to the day Notorious B.I.G. passed away. So before I go, you got to play something for him. Rest in peace, Big. This one's for you.
In the commission, you ask for permission to hit him. He don't like me, hit him while wifey was with him. You heard of us, the murderers, most shady. Been on the low lately, the feds hate me. The son is they say my killing's too blatant. hating, you hesitating. I'm in your mama crib waiting, duct taping. Your fam, destiny lays in my hands, gat lays in my waist. Francis, M to the is H phenomenal. Gun rest under your vest, body abdominal. Rhyme a few bars so I can buy a few cars. Then I kick a few flows so I can pimp a few hoes. Excellence is my presence, never tense, never hesitant. Leave a nigga bent, real quick, real sick. Wrong nights, I perform like Mike. Anyone, Tyson, Jordan, Jackson, action, back guns, ridiculous. And I'm quick to bust if my ends you touch. Kids or girl you touch, in this world I clutch. Two auto, matos, used to call me Fatso, now you call me Castro. My rap flows, militant, y'all faggots ain't killing shit. Oops, Cristal, keep spilling shit. You overdid it, Holmes, you in the danger zone. You shouldn't be alone. Hold hands and say it like me, the most shady. Frankie baby, fantastic, graphic, trying to make dough like Jurassic. Parked in with the spark kids who start shit. See me, only me, the underboss of this Holocaust. Truly yours, Frank White.